everybody. Today we're going through how we can create terms and term sets inside of Opus. From here on our dashboard, we're going to go over to Terms and Rules and jump into Terms. Inside of Terms, our first step is creating a term group. This will be the top level of our retention structure. In this case, you can have it as just a generic name. It could be something like Retention Group. And underneath it, we'll create our first term set. One thing to keep in mind with these term sets is that this first level term set you create is not going to be selectable inside of the environment, so you can't select it for actually applying it to locations. For this reason, we also want to make it something generic, in which case it's going to be retention set. And now, underneath retention set, we can start building out the actual structure of our retention schedules. What we might have is a top level for functions such as finance, HR, and maybe operations. Let's go with those top three for now. Underneath finance, we'll create our individual term rules, so this would be the retention schedules that apply to finance. Let's give it a significant name, something with a function, followed by the numbering schema or serial code, and then a keyword, something like invoice. Truthfully, this is whatever retention name you want to see associated with your items in SharePoint. So with my code now created underneath finance here, I can click to the left of it to select it, and I'm now going to apply my actual rule that I want to associate with this term. I'm going to click on Add Rule, and then click on Document and Email, and I'm going to associate my invoice plus 5 years and destroy rule that I created to this term in the last video. Now that my rule has been applied, I can simply click on Save, and essentially we're done. I have a rule applied to this term, and I can use this term. But now, let's go a little bit deeper. If I create another term over here, and we're going to call this one just example term, I will show that rules inside of Opus can be applied to multiple different locations. This is handy if you have one generic rule that you're using for many different retention schedules. You can have only one rule created, but apply it to many different terms. Now, do be warned, we recommend you try to aim for a one rule to one term relationship, and the reason for this is that if our term ever changes, such as our invoice term over here, but the example term should stay the same, we need to create a new rule and change it in 2 different locations. This can be a lot of maintenance if we have one rule applied to many terms. So always keep that in mind when you're setting up and configuring Opus. One other thing to note is that we can also do things like retire a term. So if I don't want people to select example term because, frankly, this isn't very good naming for a term, I can click on retire term, and it will deactivate this inside of the environment. It will still show up within the Opus term list for that we can go and enable this later on into the future. But for right now, I can keep it deactivated and our users won't be able to use it. Now, let's go back to the invoice term. I can also apply additional rules to it, so you can have more than one rule associated with the term. So I can create a brand new rule by just clicking to the right over here with the plus icon. I can also click on Add Rule below. I'm going to select another pre-existing rule. We have a demo 1 plus 1 year delete, and we'll see that the rules get numbered 1 to 2 o'clock. The number 1 will be the highest priority rule to take effect in the environment. Whatever is number 2 will happen as the second priority. This means if my rules run into conflict with each other, my first rule will always win, whereas my second rule will not activate. With that being said, if my first rule isn't triggering and my second rule triggers first, my second rule will still take effect. So my 1 year and delete will still happen before the 5 years and delete. Lastly, with our retention term, we can also make it so that users are unable to delete items that are classified with these terms. I'm going to click Save here, and with that done, we've essentially created out an example term set we can use going into the future. Join us next time when we will go through content sources and talk about how we can apply these term sets and terms themselves directly into SharePoint Online.